Nintendo isn't usually known for keeping dark secrets within its games. There are a few here and there, but generally Nintendo games are seen as family-friendly and cheery games that everyone loves. They give people a means to relax with a smile, a means to escape. Escape this dreary existence full of real, dark, and horrible day-to-day tragedies. But Nintendo always manages to find a way to pull these twisted realities back into their carefully crafted worlds. But of all the dark secrets within the Nintendo universe, perhaps one of the more brutal secrets, if just for its similarities to all too common real-world grievances, comes from the world of Donkey Kong!
And from this world we will reveal a dark story you never knew.
Grant? From Treesicle?
Here we go.
DK. Donkey Kong. He's the leader of the bunch. You know him well, especially after all of these videos. Seriously, Loxton, what were you thinking?
I really like Donkey Kong, and I was in the middle of Tropical Freeze at the time, which I highly recommend, by the way. Greatest 2D platformer I've ever played.
Well, enough about you. On with the dong. The Donkey Kong series holds a mystery we must Scooby-Doo out into the open, with evidence. The Kong family has gone through quite the traumatizing series of events. What with having to fight off hypnotic Tikis, Ron Swanson's doppelganger, and even Mario himself. But not even fighting the legendary Mario could prepare this family for what was to come. An event alluded to only rarely.
We speak of the Great Ape War. It's alluded to in various Donkey Kong games, but never directly spoken of. Even the wiki page on this Donkey Kong Wikia has very little information on it, and most of it is speculative. There's barely any evidence that points to this exact war, but oh, it happened, and the Kong family has suffered through it, and are still suffering through another. In fact, they are living through more wars than insert hilarious analogy. But let's start at the beginning. As you may know, Donkey Kong of the classic arcade game is modern-day Donkey Kong's grandfather, who is now known as Cranky Kong. Cranky Kong
fell into harmonious gorilla love with Wrinkly Kong, who we can assume went by another name at the time, perhaps Tidy Kong. As wrong as that sounds, she couldn't have always been so wrinkly. In fact, she may have once made me just as uncomfortable as Candy Kong does today. Oh. So Cranky and Wrinkly did it like they do on the Discovery Channel and made Donkey Kong Jr., who is modern-day Donkey Kong's father. But throughout all of the modern DK games, we never see a grown-up Donkey Kong Jr. In fact, we never see Donkey Kong Jr. at all.
Unless you count Super Mario Kart and Mario Tennis. But this is the only Mario Kart in which he appears. Every kart afterwards, he is replaced by his son, Modern DK. And in Mario Tennis, Donkey Kong Jr. is still his younger self, meaning younger than his son, Modern Donkey Kong, who's right beside him, which doesn't make sense. So either Mario Tennis is non-canon, or DK Jr. is here through the same means as Baby Mario. Some sort of time-traveling magic. But then why would they have to go back to get DK's father in his youth, instead of just playing with him as his normal grown-up self? Unless he is no longer around. A victim of the war, perhaps.
And a victim of questionable fashion sense. In an advertisement for Donkey Kong Land, a new Kong is seen wearing a fedora. This Kong has a very similar face to the rest of the Kong family. Plus, he looks more mature and sophisticated. Back in the earlier days of film, this demeanor and this actually fashionable for its time hat were often used to depict the man's man. a mature and often fatherly figure.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
I certainly am. After years of complaining that fedora-wearing men never get the ladies, he is finally proven wrong, and finds a mysterious dame who we know even less about. As in nothing. We know literally nothing, other than that she gave birth to Donkey Kong III.
And so, while adult Donkey Kong Jr. was planned to play a part in Donkey Kong Land, he didn't make it, as he never made it back to the island after fighting in the Great Ape War. He lost his final balloon. He died. So only his younger and more innocent self could be warped into the future for a game of tennis, before the harsh realities of war set in. But there is more to this war than the loss of a father. There is also the total rejection of an entire race of Kongs. The Manky Kongs. These Kongs, these orangutans, were rejected by the other Kongs for defecting to the other side. They now work for the unknown enemy of the Great Ape War, and will later work for the Kremlings. Except for Lanky Kong, the only orangutan not to defect, likely because he was too young or silly to understand war, let alone participate in it.
This alliance between the mysterious enemy we know little about and the Manky Kongs led them towards victory. They captured many friendly Kongs and held them as prisoners of war in the Mushroom Kingdom.
We see chained Kongs as enemies in Super Mario RPG, fighting against Mario, likely against their will, working for the members of the Smithy Gang, who are the antagonists of Super Mario RPG. So it is very possible these prisoners of war were sent to the Smithy Game for keeping, but they soon put them to work, similar to what sometimes happens with real prisoners of war. This may be a bit of a stretch, but it's very possible that the Smithy Gang were also in charge of the conquest over Donkey Kong Island. After all they want is world domination.
But who the hell knows? So let's now ask ourselves, is one of these imprisoned Kongs Donkey Kong Jr.? On the big timeline, we can say this Great Ape War took place during Super Mario RPG, which came out in the real world in the same time frame as Donkey Kong Country and Super Mario Kart, aka Donkey Kong Jr.'s final appearance. If Super Mario RPG takes place directly after Super Mario Kart, then perhaps Super Mario Kart is Jr.'s last appearance because he was killed shortly after during his time as a prisoner of war in this surprisingly dark RPG. His death either caused by malnourishment and unsanitary conditions or by the hands of Mario and the gang.
But Mario wouldn't kill any of them, he just beats them up.
Mario may not, but Mallow does. You can see it in his eyes. Those dastardly evil eyes that lack any sort of remorse.
Perhaps. But here's what we certainly know. At some point between Donkey Kong 3 and Donkey Kong Country, Cranky and Jr. left New York after being pestered by these two for the last time, and they went to what is now called Donkey Kong Island. Jr. fathered modern DK, but soon had to fight in this war, and was never seen again. Unless he was one of these chained Kongs. Eventually though, after the loss of DK Jr., the war ended, for one reason or another, or so we thought. With the bulk of the war out of the way, and their leader defeated, one of the enemy members took charge. K. Rool donned on a crown and called himself a king.
Yes, K. Rool is in fact not a king. A king is just another role he likes to roleplay as because it makes him feel powerful. He may have also been the lead antagonist in the Great Ape War, or he may have just been a powerful general of the Kremling faction, the army of crocodile people trying to steal DK's bananas in the original DKC trilogy. We don't know for certain either way, but we do know that after the war, K. Rool's thirst for power was still unquenched. unquenched, which is what we see in the Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Land trilogies. This confrontation has since been dubbed by fans the Banana Wars, referencing the actual Banana Wars. In fact, they are the same thing, but there's already a big video on that, and it's a very good one too, so we won't go into too much detail on that.
But to summarize it greatly, the American Banana Wars happened when the good old US of A wanted Central America's fruit-growing land in the hands of American corporations. So they kinda took it. And King K. Rool in Donkey Kong Country represents America, or perhaps works for them.
Which works out perfectly, as one could speculate that the Kremlings, being as stupid as they are, could not have invented any of the advanced technology you see in DKC, so they must merely be utilizing it. But then who did they get it from? It wouldn't make sense for the Kremlings, who have historically used pirate ships and old barrels, to suddenly be able to create giant metal oil refineries and attach souls to oil drums via alchemy. That's some post-industrial revolution / new age spiritual weirdo stuff. Not possible for these Kremling guys who have been forever stuck in the Pirate Age, an officially recognized period of history. Well, clearly the Kremlings didn't invent this stuff on their own, so they likely got it from leftover supplies and technology left behind during the real-life Banana Wars we mentioned earlier. This is also why the Kremlings for the most part only wear military helmets and belts. They find them, not craft them. They're stuck using human leftovers. This is why the fully militarily clothed Kremlings are more spread out. Most Kremlings have a body type very different from man.
There's even more evidence of human involvement in the Great Ape War and/or the Banana Wars that we can find throughout all the Donkey Kong Country games, even the most recent ones. There are plenty of ruins, and I don't just mean the ancient ruins that resemble Incan or Aztec ruins. I mean modern age ruins.
Bricks and mortar, clear glass windows, conveyor belts, airplane parts. And these ruins play an important role in the storytelling. Before you even get into any real gameplay in Tropical Freeze, you get blown right into a crashed plane that still has some power left in it to keep those screens on.
Tropical Freeze is full of these, and we know these couldn't have been built by the Snowmads. Everything they build is still made of wood. In Trunk Twister, we see plenty more crashed airplanes. One of them still on fire. So these crashes couldn't have happened too long ago. That first plane we mentioned highly resembles a World War II era cargo plane. And even just seeing all these crashed planes, some of which are still on fire or partially running, and seeing these modern ruins, some of which are still getting a bit of power, it's very safe to say that these ruins haven't been ruins for very long. It's safe to say that outside of this cheery land of Donkey Kong Country, there's an entire other war going on between the humans.
You're damn right, Loxton, because as mentioned all throughout Tropical Freeze are propeller planes meant for war, which means the only possible human conflicts going on during this time are World War II, the Bay of Pigs invasion, and the Dominican Civil War, which the US involved themselves in, for whatever reason. To clarify, it must be these particular conflicts because any wars afterwards would be using jets, not propeller planes. Also, these conflicts all at least partially took place within Central America.
All these wars and all this involvement in the area are still going on as remnants from the mysterious Great Ape War. It's just that now the apes themselves aren't getting directly involved. There are also even more remnants from the war all over the place. Factories, military equipment, weaponry, army helmets, ammo belts, military uniforms. Funky even repaired a crashed plane with a barrel, somehow. And he uses it to fly around. He also wears an army outfit he found and owns a weapons shop in Donkey Kong 64. And I think here is a good place to bring this up again. This wiki page. It doesn't make any sense! Remember how I said it was mostly speculative? Well, it doesn't say it's speculative, entering theory, possible non-canon info ahead, anywhere. It's maddening. You could even say it's driving me bananas! After a ton of research, I found nothing that directly supports the Great Ape War's existence outside the wiki articles. Are we being trolled?
Perhaps, but the truth remains. The warlike ruins and the battle with the Kremlings, and this guy, Mr. X. He certainly looks like an evil military commander, does he not? But he suffers the same fate as Donkey Kong Jr. Planned to appear, even put into manuals and magazines, but was nowhere to be found within the games. Presumably because he died. Mr. X may have been the unknown leader of the Great Ape War, but was eventually assassinated and the war ended, leaving his generals, Rool included, to disperse and do their own thing, like stealing bananas.
But it has been confirmed by Steve Mayles, one of the lead creators of Donkey Kong Country, that Mr. X and Cackle, the skeleton ghost, are one and the same. So Mr. X did die and become the ghost skeleton known as Cackle. And now looking back at the wiki, it mentions that Funky Kong was a famous pilot known as the Brown Baron. Yes, so famous in fact that upon searching for any evidence of this, Google brings you right back to this very page. But this also brings up another point.
It claims that a certain General Clump shot him down, causing him to lose his tail. This is why many people mistake him for an ape, when he is actually a half-ape, half-monkey hybrid thing, who thusly carried over the tail gene from his and Donkey Kong's mysterious mother, who was a monkey. Apparently. Now, while there is no concrete evidence to back this tale of the Baron, it should be noted that Funky Kong has twice referred to himself as a monkey, in both DK64 and DKC2.
So, original DK, Wrinkly, and their son, DK Jr., leave New York to find peace, only to find themselves in the middle of a human war zone. The humans' modern ruins and remains are used by Kremlings and Kongs alike, and a grown-up DK Jr. is drafted into the Ape Alliance, and dies.
But not in vain, as the Kremling army's leader, Mr. X, dies as well. But not before Clump shoots Funky Kong's tail off, and a large number of Kongs are sent to work for the Smithy Gang in the Mushroom Kingdom as prisoners of war. And the orangutans revolt. But after the horrors of the Great Ape War are said and done, what remains is a bunch of islands covered in modern ruins and a struggle to fill power within the Kremling army. Rool role-plays as a king and assumes it, only to return to the Kongs and steal their bananas. Either for himself or, going by other established theories, for the good old US of A.
And with the mini islands and their inhabitants still weak from the aftermath of multiple wars, tiki gods and walruses bent on world domination alike see this as the perfect opportunity for a takeover. And life, for the Kongs, goes on.
And that's supposedly the story. You never knew.
Because it's mostly speculative. But speculation and using your noggin is awesome, and I hope you enjoyed this look at the many wars the DK family has been involved in.
For more epic stories you never knew, and more of my beyond sexy voice, you should come stop by Treesicle by clicking here, or the link in the description. We hope to see you there.
And here's another collab Treesicle and I did together about the old myth that 52% of gamers are female.
So until next time, stay awesome, and never stop using that noggin.
But that's my line. Why won't you take that away from me?